Sangmin's displays lit up with activation codes as production facilities across Earth began manufacturing the cure at full capacity. Ships were already waiting in orbit, ready to carry hope to the infected worlds. First wave launching in 10 minutes, he announced. Medical teams standing by at all major distribution points. We're about to make history. The Raxian patient continued to improve, its recovery exceeding even their most optimistic predictions. Other infected aliens were already being moved into treatment chambers, ready to receive their doses of Earth's microscopic defenders. It's ironic, Minji said to her team as they prepared the next round of treatments. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were brought low by this virus, and now they're being saved by the primitive bacteria we evolved alongside. Sangmin watched as the first ships broke orbit, carrying their precious cargo to the stars. We learned from every pandemic we faced, he replied. Every outbreak taught us something. Now we're teaching those lessons to the galaxy. The orbital station buzzed with activity as more patients arrived and more treatments were prepared. Earth's primitive status had become its greatest strength, and its people worked tirelessly to share that strength with their galactic neighbors. The implementation had begun. Humanity's long experience with disease and recovery was about to save not just their own world, but all known civilization. And in doing so, they were teaching the galaxy that sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. Kim Hae-Newell stood before the assembled Galactic Scientific Council, the massive chamber filled with representatives from thousands of worlds. The holographic displays behind her showed recovery statistics from across the galaxy, numbers that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. The cure has now reached 87% of affected worlds, she announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was reporting. Recovery rates exceed 99% in all tested species. The virus that threatened to end galactic civilization has been effectively neutralized. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, clicks, whistles, electronic pulses, and dozens of spoken languages. The alien scientists, many of whom had watched helplessly as their worlds fell to the virus, could hardly believe the data before them. A Voth representative, recently revived from their emergency stasis, raised their primary appendage. But how? Our medical technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Our biological understanding was vastly superior. How did your primitive systems succeed where we failed? Hae-Newell smiled, having heard variations of this question many times now. Because we never had the luxury of a controlled environment. Earth's biosphere has been a battlefield for billions of years. Our primitive systems evolved through constant conflict. She brought up images of Earth's microscopic world, the endless war between viruses, bacteria, and immune systems that had shaped life on their planet. The alien scientists watched in fascination as she showed them the complex interactions they had never needed to develop. Your worlds are marvels of environmental engineering, Hae-Newell continued. You eliminated disease, controlled evolution, created perfect conditions for your species to thrive. But in doing so, you also eliminated the very things that could have protected you. A crystalline being from the Raxian recovery team pulsed with curiosity. You speak as if disease is beneficial. How can such chaos be an advantage? Not the disease itself, Hae-Newell explained, but the adaptations it forces. Every plague humanity survived made us stronger. Every virus we fought taught our immune systems new tricks. We didn't just evolve. We co-evolved with our microscopic enemies and allies. The displays showed Earth's history of pandemics, each one terrible, each one eventually overcome. The alien scientists began to understand that what they had seen as primitive chaos was actually an incredibly sophisticated defense system, shaped by countless generations of survival. Your civilizations reached for the stars, Hae-Newell said. We were still fighting in the mud. But that fight gave us exactly what we needed when this crisis came. Reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. Species that had been on the brink of extinction were recovering. Worlds that had fallen silent were coming back to life. And at the center of it all was Earth, the primitive world that had saved them all. "We're establishing the Interstellar Medical Exchange," Hey Newell announced. "Earth will share what we've learned about biological defense and adaptation. In return, we hope to learn from your technological advances. Together, we can create medical science that combines the best of both approaches." The test chamber's magnified view showed an amazing sight. The human gut bacteria, which had evolved alongside humans for millions of years, were actively seeking out and destroying the alien virus. It wasn't just random chance. They were displaying organized behavior. "It's like they've seen this before," Jin Su muttered, adjusting the viewing controls. "But how? This virus isn't from Earth." Hai Jin pulled up historical data from Earth's bacterial evolution. "They haven't seen this exact virus before, but they've seen everything it's trying to do. Look at these pattern matches." The screens filled with comparison data. Earth's bacteria had spent millions of years fighting off invasive organisms. They had developed complex defensive and offensive capabilities that the alien civilizations, with their sterile environments, had never needed. "Our bodies are battlefields," Hai Jin explained to the alien observers who had gathered around their station. "Every human carries billions of microorganisms inside them. Some try to harm us, some protect us, and over millions of years, we've developed a complex relationship with them all." One of the alien scientists, a floating sphere of pure energy, pulsed with confusion. "But your species is so young. How could you have developed such complex biological defenses?" Jin Su smiled. "We didn't develop them. We inherited them. Earth's life has been fighting these battles since the first cells formed. Humans are just the latest players in a very, very old game." In the test chamber, they watched as human gut bacteria continued to dismantle the alien virus. The bacteria weren't just destroying it. They were learning from it, adapting their own structures to become even more effective. "This is why the virus couldn't adapt fast enough to overcome us," Hai Jin said, highlighting specific interactions on the screen. "Our bacteria don't just fight back. They predict. They've seen every trick, every mutation strategy, every adaptation technique. Nothing this virus can do is truly new to them." The alien observers watched in amazement as Hai Jin's team demonstrated how different strains of human bacteria could be modified to target specific aspects of the virus. What their advanced technology couldn't accomplish, Earth's microscopic warriors were doing naturally. "We've always thought of bacteria as simple organisms," Jin Su explained to the gathering crowd. "But they've been evolving and fighting for billions of years. They're the ultimate veterans of biological warfare." Hai Jin brought up new test results, showing how different human bacterial strains could be combined for even more effective responses. "We're not just using them as they are. We're learning from them, enhancing their natural abilities with our technology." The aliens, representing some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, found themselves taking notes from what they had considered a primitive species. Earth's messy biology, which they had once looked down upon, was proving to be an invaluable resource. "Think of it this way," Hai Jin said, noticing their confusion. "Your worlds are like carefully tended gardens. Beautiful, efficient, controlled. Earth is like a wild forest. Chaotic, dangerous, but incredibly resilient. We didn't just survive in that forest. We learned to use its rules to our advantage." In the days that followed, Hai Jin's team worked to develop delivery systems that would work for different alien physiologies. The bacteria needed to be modified to survive in various environmental conditions while maintaining their virus-fighting capabilities. "It's ironic," Jin Su commented one evening as they reviewed the latest results. "The virus was engineered to be the perfect weapon, using the most advanced technology in the galaxy. But it's being defeated by microscopic life forms that have existed on Earth since before humans walked upright." Hai Jin nodded, watching the latest batch of modified bacteria successfully protect a sample of alien tissue. Sometimes the best solutions aren't about having the most advanced technology. They're about understanding the natural processes that have been working all along. The Mumbai facility became a hub of galactic medical research. Species from across known space sent representatives to learn from Earth's microbiological warfare experts. Humanity's primitive status had become their greatest asset, and their bacterial allies were about to change medicine throughout the galaxy. "We're not just fighting a virus anymore," Hai-Jin told her team as they prepared to share their findings with the galaxy. "We're showing the universe that sometimes the most powerful allies are the ones you can't see without a microscope." The microscopic defenders that had protected humanity throughout its evolution were about to take on their biggest role yet, saving life throughout the galaxy. And in doing so, they were teaching everyone a valuable lesson about the power of natural evolution and the strength that comes from fighting countless battles for survival. The orbital medical station Alpha hung like a bright star above Earth, its massive medical base filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Dr. Minji stood before the containment unit, watching the Raxian patient through the specialized crystal viewport. The crystalline being's normal rainbow shimmer had dulled to a sickly gray, a clear sign of the virus's devastating effects. Beginning treatment protocol Alpha, Minji spoke into her recorder. Patient is a Raxian elder, infected for approximately 3 standard weeks. Administering modified human antibodies combined with engineered probiotic strain HX227. Her team moved with practiced precision, preparing the treatment. The Raxian lay still, its crystalline form barely pulsing with life. They were running out of time. "Delivery system engage," announced her assistant. "Treatment entering containment chamber now." The modified treatment, a combination of human immune responses and carefully engineered beneficial bacteria, flowed into the chamber in a fine mist. It surrounded the Raxian's form, seeking out the virus that had devastated their civilization. Meanwhile, 40 levels below, Dr. Ryu Sang-min faced a wall of holographic displays showing shipping routes across the galaxy. His team had converted Earth's largest vaccine production facilities to manufacture the cure. Now came the harder part, getting it to everyone who needed it. Priority shipments to the Meridian Cloud cities, he ordered, marking routes on the display. Their atmospheric conditions will help spread the treatment faster. Second wave to the Voth archive worlds. If we can revive their scientists, they can help with distribution. The logistics were staggering. Billions of doses needed to reach thousands of worlds, each with different environmental requirements. But humanity had done this before, during their own pandemics. They knew how to manage mass vaccination campaigns. Back in the treatment chamber, Minji watched in amazement as color began returning to the Raxian's crystalline form. The virus, which had resisted the most advanced alien medical technology, was being systematically destroyed by Earth's microscopic warriors. Treatment efficacy exceeding projected rates, she noted. Viral load dropping by 37% in first hour. Patient showing signs of improved energy crystallization. The Raxian surface began to pulse with stronger light, its natural rainbow pattern slowly emerging from the sickly gray. The virus was losing its hold. Down in logistics, Sang-min coordinated with Earth's transportation networks. "We need cold storage units modified for crystal-based biologics on these routes," he directed, "and atmospheric containment systems for the gas giant species. Remember the lessons from the 2031 distribution. Redundancy saves lives." Shipping companies that had once carried goods across Earth now found themselves part of a galactic relief effort. Their experience moving temperature-sensitive vaccines proved invaluable for transporting the cure across vast distances. Second-hour results, Minji reported, her voice tight with excitement. Viral load down 72%. Patient showing strong signs of recovery. Crystal matrix reestablishing normal patterns. The Raxian surface had begun to shimmer with health, the virus retreating before the relentless assault of Earth's engineered defenders. Other medical teams gathered to watch, their various environmental suits clustering around the viewing ports. "Begin prep for mass production of this batch," Minji ordered. "The Raxian biology is responding even better than our simulations predicted." Sang-min's team had already secured production facilities on 20 worlds. "Distribution networks are ready," he confirmed through the station's communication system. As soon as you verify the treatment, we can begin galaxy-wide implementation. The Raxian patient began to move, its crystalline form flexing in ways they hadn't seen since the infection. Through the translation system, it communicated for the first time in weeks. The pain, it's fading. Min-Ji smiled behind her mask. Treatment success confirmed. Patient showing clear signs of recovery. Recommend immediate implementation of Distribution Plan Alpha. The alien scientists, who had once looked down on Earth's messy biology, now eagerly signed up for research exchanges. They wanted to understand how human immune systems worked, how Earth's bacteria had evolved such effective defensive strategies, how this primitive world had produced such resilient life. But remember, Newell cautioned, these defenses came at a great cost. Earth's history is filled with plagues and pandemics that killed millions. We're not suggesting you abandon your environmental controls. We're suggesting we find a balance between protection and adaptation. The Galactic Council chambers, once filled with despair as the virus spread, now buzzed with excitement about the future. Ships from across known space were arriving at Earth, carrying scientists eager to study the planet's biological diversity. Your world, a senior alien researcher commented to Newell after the presentation, is like a biological library. Every disease you survived, every adaptation you developed, it's all recorded in your genes and your microbiome. Newell nodded. We never thought of it that way. We were too busy surviving. But now we can help ensure no species has to face these threats alone again. The news continued to spread across the galaxy. Humanity, the young species that had barely mastered faster-than-light travel, had succeeded where the most advanced civilizations had failed. Their primitive status had become a source of fascination rather than dismissal. We're not just offering a cure, Newell told her team as they prepared for another round of diplomatic meetings. We're offering a new way of thinking about biological defense. Sometimes the best protection isn't about eliminating threats. It's about learning to survive them. The galaxy was changing. Species that had once prided themselves on their sterile environments now sought to understand the complex biological interactions that had saved them. Earth's chaotic but resilient approach to life was revolutionizing medical science across known space. And at the center of it all stood humanity, ready to share the hard-won wisdom of millions of years of evolution. They had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength, and in doing so, had earned their place among the stars. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glittered with the forms of 1,000 species as Ambassador Song Ji-hoon took his place at the central podium. Earth's flag, now a symbol of hope across the galaxy, floated beside him in the holographic display. 1 year ago, Ji-hoon began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. We faced extinction. Today, we stand at the beginning of a new era of medical science. The chamber had changed in the past year. Where once the advanced species had sat apart from the primitive worlds, now representatives from all technological levels mixed freely. Earth's success had shattered old hierarchies. Dr. Park Min-soo's hologram appeared beside Ji-hoon, showing their latest research results. The virus that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization had been transformed. Under Earth's guidance, it had become the foundation for a new type of medical treatment. By understanding how the virus adapts, Min-soo explained, we've learned to direct those adaptations. What was once a weapon has become a tool for healing. The displays showed the modified virus delivering targeted treatments across different species, crystalline beings, energy forms, silicon-based life, all benefiting from technology that merged Earth's biological understanding with advanced alien science. But this is more than just medical advancement, Ji-hoon continued. It's a lesson about strength, about survival, about what really makes a civilization advanced. The chamber listened intently. Many of these beings had once dismissed Earth as barely worth noticing. Now they eagerly sought humanity's insight, recognizing that technological advancement alone wasn't enough. We've established research centers across Earth, Min-soo reported. Scientists from 1,000 worlds study our planet's biology, while we learn from their technology. Together, we're creating defenses that combine the best of both approaches. The displays showed Earth's transformation. The Mumbai facility had grown into a sprawling research complex. The orbital medical stations had multiplied, forming a ring of healing around the planet. Ships from across the galaxy arrived daily, bringing new knowledge and seeking Earth's wisdom. The colony world of New Haven basked in the warmth of its twin suns. Morning dew sparkled on the greenhouse panels, where Harin worked among her beloved plants. She carefully picked the blue healing flowers that could cure most common illnesses. At 17, she had already learned more about medicine than many of the adult colonists. A shadow fell across her work. Harin looked up, expecting to see clouds, but instead saw something that made her blood run cold. Massive ships pierced through the atmosphere, their surfaces catching and splitting sunlight like enormous diamonds. They moved in perfect formation, silent despite their size. "No, no, no," she whispered, dropping her basket of herbs. The falling flowers scattered across the greenhouse floor as she pressed herself against the glass wall, watching more ships appear. Everyone knew about the Elysian Empire, the stories of their raids, their belief that they had the right to rule all other species. But New Haven was so far from their space, so isolated. The peace of the morning shattered. Alarms blared across the colony, their wailing mixing with screams as people began running in all directions. Harin's hands shook as she pulled up her comlink, trying to reach her parents. Static was her only answer. Through the greenhouse windows, she saw the first colonists making their way to the emergency shelters. Security forces were directing people. Their weapons looked so small compared to the massive ships above. That's when Harin remembered the nursery. The youngest children would still be there, probably terrified and confused. Without thinking about her own safety, Harin burst out of the greenhouse and ran toward the academy building. Her feet pounded against the metal walkways as she passed others running in the opposite direction. Some tried to grab her, to pull her toward the shelters, but she twisted free. "The children," she shouted back at them. "Someone has to get the children." The nursery was on the third floor of the West Wing. Harin's lungs burned as she sprinted up the emergency stairs, taking them two at a time. She could hear crying before she even reached the door. Inside, she found Miss Park trying to calm 15 small children, all under the age of 7. Harin. "Thank goodness," Miss Park said, bouncing a crying toddler on her hip. "The lifts aren't working. I can't move them all by myself." Harin's mind raced. The main exits would be too exposed, too obvious. Then she remembered. The maintenance tunnels. Every colonial building had them, running underground between structures. She'd used them dozens of times while helping the engineers repair systems. "Miss Park, the tunnels," Harin said, already moving to gather children. "We can take them through the maintenance tunnels to the shelter." They worked quickly, organizing the children into a line. Harin took the lead while Miss Park brought up the rear. The maintenance entrance was hidden behind a panel near the floor, but Harin knew exactly how to open it. The first explosions rocked the building as they started moving the children into the tunnel. Each blast made the little ones cry harder, but Harin kept her voice steady, encouraging them. "It's just like an adventure game," she told them, helping each one down. "We're exploring a secret passage. Who can be the quietest explorer?" This game kept them moving, kept them from panicking. They were almost done. Just 3 more children to go. When the nursery door burst inward, Miss Park screamed. Harin spun around and found herself facing creatures out of ancient fairy tales. The Elysians stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies seeming to glow from within. Their skin was like glass, showing shadowy shapes of organs moving beneath. They wore armor that looked grown rather than made, crystal plates flowing like frozen water around their bodies. "Miss Park, take them and go," Harin shouted, pushing the last children toward the teacher. She slammed the tunnel entrance shut just as the first Elysian reached for her. Their leader stepped forward, his face a masterpiece of alien beauty and cruelty. Unlike his soldiers, whose inner light pulsed blue-white, his glowed with golden undertones. The name tag on his crystal armor read, Commander Jai-Ho, in multiple languages. Fascinating, he said, his voice melodious despite its coldness. You sacrifice your escape to ensure the young ones got away. He circled Harin as she stood her ground, trying not to show her fear. Such tactical thinking from such a primitive species. Most would have simply run. We're not primitive, Harin said, lifting her chin. We just build differently than you. This seemed to amuse the commander. He reached out with one long-fingered hand and tilted her face up, his touch like ice against her skin. Yes, I can see why you might think that, but soon you'll understand just how far behind your species truly is. He turned to his soldiers. Take this one to the ship. I want to know everything about how these humans think, everything about how they hide their true technologies from us. The last thing Harin saw before they took her away was her beloved greenhouse shattering under the Elysian weapons, its precious healing flowers scattered to the wind. She didn't know then that those same flowers had encoded within them the beginnings of humanity's greatest evolution, an evolution the Elysians would soon wish they'd never triggered. The Crystal Ascendant's interrogation chamber was unlike anything Harin had ever seen. Crystal formations grew from floor to ceiling, pulsing with inner light that cast rainbow shadows across the walls. The chair she sat in wasn't metal or plastic. It was alive, grown from the same crystal as the ship itself, molding to hold her firmly in place. Harin tried to steady her breathing as she watched Chief Scientist Kita pace around her. His translucent skin rippled with patterns of light that matched his emotions. Right now, they swirled with frustration and curiosity. He kept looking between her and the floating crystal displays that showed her medical scans. These readings make no sense, Kita said, more to himself than to her. Your neural pathways show signs of enhancement. Your cellular structure has markers we've only seen in advanced species. He spun to face her, his inner light flaring. Where are the implants? What technology are you using to hide them? Harin almost wanted to laugh, despite her fear. We don't have any implants. We're just human. Lies. Kita's hand slammed against a crystal formation, making it ring like a bell. No species progresses as quickly as yours without artificial enhancement. In just 3 centuries, you've spread to dozens of worlds. You've adapted to environments that should have killed you. How? 2 Elysian guards stood by the chamber's entrance, their armor growing and shifting slightly as they breathed. Harin could feel the chair adjusting its grip on her arms every time she moved, keeping her perfectly restrained. Maybe you don't understand us as well as you think you do, Harin said. She thought of the greenhouse back home, of how the plants she tended could adapt to new soils and conditions. Living things can change on their own. They can grow stronger. Kita's laughter was like breaking glass. Simple creature. The Elysian Empire has ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We have studied millions of species. We know the natural limits of biological evolution. He gestured to the displays. Your kind should still be struggling to leave your home world. Instead, you thrive in space, resist diseases that kill other species, heal faster than natural processes should allow. He leaned close to her face, his crystal eyes reflecting her frightened expression. Tell me your secrets, human. Tell me how you hide your technological advantages. Tell me what your leaders have implanted in your people. Harin met his gaze. I'm just a student. I work with plants. I don't know anything about secret technologies. Plants. Kita stepped back, his light patterns shifting to show interest. Yes, your file mentioned you were found in a botanical facility. Perhaps. He turned to one of the floating displays, his long fingers dancing through the light. Perhaps that's where you hide your enhancements. Biological rather than mechanical. Very clever. They're just healing flowers, Harin protested. Natural medicines. Kita wasn't listening anymore. He spoke rapidly to his assistants in the musical Elysian language. More displays appeared, showing complex molecular structures that Harin didn't understand. If you won't tell us willingly, we have other methods, Kita said finally. The neural induction chamber will let us see everything in your mind, every memory, every piece of knowledge passed down by your leaders. Harin pulled against her restraints. Please, I'm telling you the truth. We don't have any hidden technology. Bring the neural probes, Kite ordered. Full spectrum scan. If their enhancement is biological, it will have left traces in her nervous system. Crystal formations began growing from the ceiling, forming into delicate spikes that pointed down at Harin's head. They hummed with energy that made her teeth ache. Wait, she said, real panic setting in now. Wait, please. I don't know anything. You know everything, Kita said, watching the probes descend. Every human carries the secret of your impossible advancement. And I will find it, even if I have to take your mind apart piece by piece. The chamber's lights dimmed except for the glow of the probes. Harin could feel energy building in the air, making her hair stand on end. As the first probe touched her forehead, cold as ice, she thought again of her flowers in the greenhouse, how they changed and adapted to survive, growing stronger with each generation. She didn't know then that she was about to prove just how adaptable humans could be. The last thing she saw before the pain began was Kite's eager face, his inner light pulsing with anticipation. The Elysian Empire had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, but they had never encountered anything like human determination. And in their arrogance, they were about to make a mistake that would change the galaxy forever. Pain exploded through Harin's body as the crystal probes touched her skin again. Her screams bounced off the chamber walls, making the living crystals vibrate in response. This was the 5th session, or maybe the 6th. Time had become meaningless in her world of agony. Kita stood at his control panel, adjusting the power flowing through the neural induction probes. Interesting, he muttered as new readings appeared on his displays. Your pain threshold is remarkably high for such a primitive species. Harin couldn't respond. Her throat was raw from screaming. Sweat soaked her clothes, yet she felt cold, so cold. The probes weren't just causing pain. They were diving deep into her nervous system, trying to map every neural pathway, every cellular connection. Junior scientist Suji monitored another set of displays, her translucent features catching the light from the scanning equipment. Something in the readings made her inner light pulse with concern. Sir, these patterns, they're not normal. Of course they're not normal, Kita snapped. Nothing about these humans is normal. That's what we're trying to understand. No, I mean. Suji's fingers danced through the holographic data. Look at her cellular structure. It's changing. Every time we activate the probes, her body adapts. It's like her DNA is rewriting itself in response to the pain. Kaita waved away her concerns. Meaningless feedback in the scanning system. Increase power to the temporal probes. Fresh agony shot through Harin's head. But something was different this time. The pain felt distant somehow, like her body was learning to process it differently. Through tear-blurred eyes, she noticed something strange. The crystal probes touching her skin were starting to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Sir, Suji's voice held real alarm now. The ship's crystals, they're resonating with her neural patterns. Kaita finally looked up from his work, his confidence wavering for the first time. The chamber's crystal walls were indeed pulsing, their normal blue-white light taking on a reddish tinge that matched Harin's racing heartbeat. Impossible, he said, but even he couldn't deny what the readings showed. No organic being can interface with our crystal technology. It requires the unique properties of Elysian biology. Harin felt something shifting inside her mind. Each pulse of pain seemed to open new pathways, new connections. She could feel the crystal probes now, not just as instruments of torture, but as living things. They sang to her, their song becoming clearer with each passing moment. Her neural activity is off the charts, Suji reported, backing away from her station. Sir, I really think we should stop. We continue. Kita snarled. We're finally seeing something interesting. Maximum power to all probes. The pain should have knocked Harin unconscious. Instead, her mind expanded. She could feel every crystal in the chamber, could sense the energy flowing through them. The probes weren't just torturing her anymore. They were changing her, teaching her body how to speak their language. Sir, her cellular structure, it's incorporating elements of crystal matrices. Suji's voice shook. This isn't supposed to be possible. Human DNA can't possibly adapt this quickly. But it was happening. With each surge of agony, Harin's body learned and changed. The very torture meant to break her was instead transforming her into something new, something that had never existed before. The chamber's crystals sang louder, their light now pulsing in perfect sync with her. Even the restraints holding her seemed to resonate with her presence. Kita's face showed a mix of fascination and growing fear as he watched his instruments record the impossible. "Fascinating," he whispered. "All this time, we thought they must be hiding advanced technology. But their power was biological all along. This ability to adapt, to change, to become something new." His inner light flickered with excitement. "We've discovered it, the secret of human advancement." "Sir," Suji's voice was barely a whisper now. "The crystal matrices throughout the ship, they're all starting to resonate with her pattern. This isn't just affecting the interrogation chamber anymore." Harin hardly heard them. The pain was still there, but it had become something else. A tool, a teacher, showing her things about herself she had never imagined. She could feel the ship around her, its crystalline nature calling to the new structures forming in her cells. The probes sparked and sizzled against her skin, their power fluctuating as they struggled to maintain control. Kita's confident expression had given way to uncertainty as his instruments showed readings he couldn't explain. The Elysian Empire had tortured thousands of species before, but they had never seen anything like this. They didn't understand yet, but they would soon. Human beings weren't just another spacefaring species to be conquered. They were creatures of endless adaptation, of constant change and growth. And in their arrogance, the Elysians had just pushed that adaptability to its ultimate expression. Harin's eyes snapped open, now showing traces of crystalline light. The probe's song reached a crescendo in her mind. Something was about to break, but it wouldn't be her. 7 days of torture had changed Harin in ways the Elysians never expected. As Kita prepared for another session, he failed to notice how the chamber's crystals hummed differently when Harin was brought in. Her skin had taken on a subtle sheen, almost like the first hints of Elysian translucence. "Begin the neural scan," Kita ordered, his voice holding the bored tone of routine. Standard power levels. The crystal probes descended toward Harin's head. But this time, something was different. Instead of flinching away, she smiled. The moment the first probe touched her skin, her eyes snapped open, and Kita stumbled back in shock. Harin's eyes glowed with the same inner light as an Elysian's, turning her brown irises into pools of golden radiance. The restraints holding her, pure crystal technology that responded only to Elysian biology, suddenly cracked, then shattered into thousands of glittering pieces. Impossible. Kita hit the alarm panel, but nothing happened. The chamber's crystals pulsed with a new rhythm now. Harin's rhythm. Her heartbeat echoed through the living walls of the ship. She stood slowly, fragments of her restraints falling away like broken glass. Her movements were smooth, deliberate, as if she were testing a new body. In a way, she was. 7 days of neural probing had forced her body to adapt, to change, to become something that could survive the torture. "Security breach. Contain the subject," Kita shouted into his communicator. No response came. The crystal technology that the Elysians depended on wasn't listening to them anymore. "You know what's funny?" Harin's voice carried strange harmonics that made every crystal in the chamber vibrate in sympathy. "You kept looking for hidden technology, for implants, for some artificial reason humans could adapt so quickly." She took a step toward Kita, who backed away. "You never considered that adaptation itself was our power." The neural induction probes twisted away from their mountings, now floating in the air around Horin like a crown. Suji, who had been monitoring the equipment, pressed herself against the wall as the chamber's crystal formations began to grow and shift. "What are you?" Kita demanded, his own inner light flickering with fear. "I'm what you made me," Horin said. She reached out and touched a crystal wall. It rippled like water under her fingers. "Every time you tortured me, my body learned. Every probe you used taught me more about your technology. Humans don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to thrive." The chamber's main display screen shattered, its crystal components reforming into floating shards that danced around Horin. Her prison had become her armor, her torture devices now her tools. "Fascinating, isn't it?" she gestured, and the crystal shards formed into a mirror, showing Kita his own terrified face. "You thought you were studying humanity's secrets. Instead, you gave us exactly what we needed to surpass you."